washed and the table to be set. She was just sitting there listening to Jesus. And Martha was the one who just was serving and working to the point of getting burned up and frustrated. All right. Enough about that. Let's get back to the Bible. Okay. Verse 26. That he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word. So Christ sanctifies the church. Okay, it's a role that Christ takes. He sanctifies the church. Sanctify means to grow and mature and get more holy and more righteous and more mature in the faith. That's what Christ has done for the church. And as a husband, we are called to do that, to exercise spiritual leadership in our home. This is things like having family devotions with the family, talking about spiritual things. I just read a statistic today, this morning, that something like 50% of families in the United States send their children to Sunday school or Bible school, but only about 10% read their Bibles to their children at home. So there's a lot of men that are falling behind. They're missing this spiritual leadership of teaching their families and their wives too. Here's something interesting that virtually every woman I've talked to, virtually every wife I've talked to, when I ask them this, would you like your husband to take spiritual leadership in the home? Virtually every one of them has said yes. When I'm talking about believers here, I'm talking about, believing wives, they say yes. I want that. I want my husband to pick up a Bible. I want him to read it. I want him to tell me his thoughts from the Bible. I want him to be a spiritual leader. And many wives are spiritual leaders in their homes because of the failure of their husband to step to the plate. And so then, of course, wives will take that role. Okay, verse 27 says, so that, okay, this is why. So he sanctified the church, cleansing her, so that why? He might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. So the reason that Jesus is doing this is for his benefit, that he can have this glorious bride without spot and wrinkle, and also for her benefit, that she's glorified, that she's living in splendor and beauty and purity. So this again talks about spiritual leadership. A good husband will imitate the glory and the power and the authority of Christ. And a good wife will imitate the beauty and perfection and glory of the church. Now, here is where I jotted down a note from the old Baptist minister Adrian Rogers. I think he might have passed away by now. But he's got all of his sermons on YouTube, and they are fantastic. He had a sermon about this, and his comment about this, someone had asked him, well, which was better? Who was better, a wife or a husband, a woman or a man? And he said, well, a woman is infinitely better at being a woman than a man is. And a man is infinitely better at being a man than a woman is. And so that's really what's going on here. Here is roles that men are just made way better at filling a man's role. And a woman is just way better at filling a woman's role. They're given jobs. All right, so verse 28 says, in the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. I'll read the next verse too. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but he nourishes and cherishes it, just as Christ does the church. So this is how you love yourself. We do need to love ourselves. We need to take care of ourselves. And husbands, because this is written to husbands, the way that you love yourself is to care for your wife. So how do we treat ourselves? We want comfort, we want kindness, we want respect, we want to take care of our health, our bodies, our emotional health, our spiritual health. So we do that, we love our wife like that, because that's caring for our own bodies. We're not harsh and demeaning to ourselves, we don't ignore our own needs, and so we wouldn't want to do that to our wife either. Caring for ourselves and loving yourself as your own self and caring for yourself I have to think of some of the sorrows that Audrey and I have been through with our foster children, leaving our home, sometimes in pretty difficult circumstances, and how we've been able to prop each other up in those circumstances, how we're able to care for each other and love each other and cry with each other. When these children leave our homes and we don't know where they're going and we don't know, what kind of circumstances and how their lives are going to end up. So this is how we can love each other as our own body. I'm sad. I know she's sad. And we're both caring for each other. That's just, to me, that's a beautiful picture of love. All right, so then we go to verse 30. We're getting to the end of our passage here. We are members of one body. So this is where we get to being one body and one flesh. And there's the other thing. When Paul talks about the church being one body, and when one member suffers, we all suffer together with it. That also just comes into this here too. Husband and wife, we are one body, we're one flesh. So when we're apart, when we pull apart, whether it's through an argument or a fight or whatever it is, that should be painful. I mean, it's as painful as your flesh ripping apart. We should flow into one body, a single body. When one member hurts, we all hurt together. We both are hurting. When one spouse is hurting, we both hurt together because we are one body. The passage ends with a little bit of good wisdom here. Therefore, a man should leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So back to becoming one flesh, but also just a challenge for us to form our own family units. Not letting in-laws get in the way of our relationship, not letting our own family get in the way of our relationship. I'm thinking of a brother-in-law of mine who, a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, they picked up their family and they moved all the way from Idaho down to southern Florida, which was a tremendous move, far away from they were with their family, and his two brothers were living there, one brother was left there, and all his uncles were there and everything, up in Idaho, and he picked up and moved. And I congratulated him for it, and he was excited about it. They're a little family. They've got 4 children now, and they're making their own way now in Florida, and just thoroughly enjoying it. And I think that's just great. They're building their own family unit. There's also something doctrinal here about us leaving the law, the schoolmaster that led us to Christ. That was our father. Before we came to Christ, but we leave that now behind us. The final part here deals with a mystery. It says this mystery is profound, and I'm saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let me stay on here. Okay, yeah. So we're saying that this refers to Christ and the church. So this is where we get to where Christ and the church are the ultimate example of love. So we have this. We have a God. We believe in a God who reveals himself in creation. He shows his goodness in creation. And so we have God revealing himself and glorifying, being glorified in creation. The same way we have God coming down and being one flesh with his creation through the incarnation of Jesus, how Jesus came and walked among us. And then we have another relationship where we have Jesus being one body with his church, and he's glorified in how his church being glorified. And he comes down and condescends to be with his church and be with his people, and becomes one flesh with his people. Those are fantastic truths of God's love. He's not just this distant God who sets the world in motion and just leaves it. Jesus is not just this distant God who just lets the people of the world die in their sins. No, he comes down and dies for them. That was 2,000 years ago. We can't see Jesus walking among his church today. So the closest thing we have to showing how Jesus loves his church is husbands and wives, believing husbands and wives, walking together in love, showing the world how true love can work, showing the world how true sacrificial love can work. showing the wonder of Jesus dwelling with us in our marriages. So that is a mystery that is now revealed. We reveal that mystery to the world in our marriages. So the